If you don't understand, I'm sorry, I'll try and speak slowly. I created this software 10 years ago. So that's the motivate people to code. How do we make it meaningful to them and their lives? And I think that music, amazingly powerful tool to find ways into not everybody, but many people's lives. And so Sonic Pi is a tool for creating music. It just so happens to be also a tool for learning how to code. But primarily, it's an instrument. And so the goal of Sonic Pi turned into two things. Firstly, to find ways to make it easy to teach computer science in schools. That was the first goal. But the second, and actually more important goal, I think, is to be a tool for professional musicians. Because I think that in the UK, we're still struggling, and I'm sure around the world, and especially in Spain, to find ways to motivate children. And in the UK, when we had a new curriculum for computer science, we asked lots of people, how do we excite children how to code? And these people said, sorting numbers. Who has fun sorting numbers? Nobody, right? And algorithms and data structures are not interesting, but beats and rhythms are. And actually, beats are algorithms. Baselines are data structures. They are the same thing. We just need to look at it in different ways. And so by focusing on professional musicians, I'm creating a tool that is used around the world. Actually, there's a really amazing performer in New York. She's called DJ Dave. And she performs to thousands of people in exactly the same... Oh, that's me. Haha. That's me performing on stage. But DJ Dave, she's way better than me. And she's performing in a way that makes people think, what is she doing? How is she making that music? Oh, she's coding. I need to learn to code. Coding is for me, because music is for me. And that's important. And if we want to try and sort of bridge the division between people who know and understand technology and people who don't understand technology, we need to find ways to make it meaningful for everybody. And I think music is an amazing tool. And I started it thinking it'd be fun, and now here I am in Barcelona jamming with people who are learning how to code. So I think it's enough for me to stop talking. If you want to find more information about me or talk to me, I'll be here the whole night. So you can come and chat with me. I'm really happy to talk to you about coding and about music and about creativity and about expression. Because ultimately, Sonic Pi is a tool for human expression. It's not a tool to replace musicians. It's not a tool to replace the violin. It's another instrument with which humans can express themselves in new and exciting ways that add to the creative possibilities of music. And I'd like to pass the microphone on to Pau, who can explain how it's working in their classroom.
A warm round of applause for him. Well, I am not supposed to talk, so let me explain briefly. In our cooperative called Bersembran, in addition to carrying out this workshop, because I'm one of the people who uses Sony Pig to program music, we are a few people in Catalonia. We're a small religion. We have also translated the manual. If there are any music teachers here, or any technology teachers, any programming teachers, any coding teachers, all of it has been edited. And we have a few copies here if you want to take. And the process has been very nice. It is true that there are no women. I don't know what's going on with women in our class, Mark. Mark will explain that to us. On my side, that's it. Well, I'd like to hear your testimonial about how it went. Well, first of all, when Pau suggested, well, when he asked me to get involved in all of this, of course I said yes. We always say yes. And in fact, with the new high school curriculum, it is one of these new optional courses you can do. We called it creative robotics. After having social robotics, during the social robotics there were some women, but I mean, it's complicated attracting women. I don't know. First we had a woman, But then, well, given that the practices are not consolidated, now we have no women. The nice thing is that they can mix up, but they can also compete with an optional course called communication, and it's more artistic, and it's very difficult. And we have enjoyed. And I loved it. Well, the idea is that if there is a good learning, it should stay. For anybody who wants to do a part of robotics, creative or artistic robotics, it is something that can actually be done. And I reckon that the manual and all of the tools and people like Sam who are updating things, well, it's a very good thing indeed. And it's a great pleasure to be able to play with him, right? That's it. Hector.
To Barcelona. Thank you the whole team to be confident with this proposal. Moltes gràcies per venir. Bueno,
Between Mark, Sam and Pau, we'll start making music with the code. Thank you. Thank you. Excellent. Let's carry on. Does anybody know what this computer is all about? Let's see who knows. In the back. What is this computer all about? Okay, wait. Now, it is an Olivetti writing typewriter that made a beautiful sound when it actually was being used. Anybody else? So next, let's listen to Joan Jo, who is the deputy chairman of the Bofill Foundation, and he was the creator of the first Spanish company that produced a computer. He has been the Minister of Industry and Energy. He has been the Mayor of Mataró. He has a spectacular CV that we shall not go over now, but he wants to devote some words to us to start the festival. Joan, you have the floor. That typewriting machine, the typewriting machine, on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, there is a drawer. The computer is inside the drawer. And it is called Factor P. It used to be called Factor P. The company we created, two colleagues of mine and myself, in the 60s, well, it produced many computers, and it was called Factor P because it was P for first. In Spanish, first is prime with a P. And he has said so very well. It was the first one produced fully in Spain, but it was not the one who was fully designed in Spain. And after the P, we made some changes, and I'm going to say it very clearly. We copied a few things from different places. I had been in Paris for 3 months, working with a computer company, and a colleague of mine had been working in Sweden in an electronics company. And we had learned a few things, and then we more or less copied them. And then we did the P, then Q, then R, and they all looked very much alike. And then, at the time, there was no software. In other words, the software was pure hardware. We had some irons that we introduced through some electric wiring, and we sewed it. And a significant part of our work were, ladies who were sewing the programming, the code inside the hardware. We had Q, we had R, and then we said, now we have to make one on our own. And we did S. And S was fully fully designed in Barcelona and fully produced in Barcelona. And it competed against all of the ones that existed at the time. Olivetti, Nicodor, NCR, many of them. Fine. Having said that, well, just to show you to which extent the part that we call digital touches my heart. Now, here we are we're here to discuss about the digital world, but above all, we want to talk about education. And what I'd like to do is to bear in mind, and this is my take-home message about my words, is that first of all, what I want to do first of all is to welcome you here warmly. And I hope that this hub we want to create at the Bofill Foundation will have a long life and will be full as we are here today. We have a full house. So, as I was saying, the foundation, the Bofill Foundation, has as a goal, clearly, education. Education is our goal. Why? And some here will laugh, because I always say it like this. I want you to remember 5 things, just 5 things, okay? I'm going to say one after the other. First, the main goal for all of us and for all of our organizations and all of our models is the welfare of people. Not financial or economic growth, but people's welfare. The GDP, the economic growth, may be a part that's needed to attain welfare, but growth in itself is not the goal. It is just one of the tools that can give welfare, but sometimes there are growth rates that not only do not produce welfare, but they can actually be very... I always say, well, a person's welfare is dependent on it, but it is also dependent on education and health, and all of them together are more important than just the GDP. So, we're not talking about economic growth, we're talking about welfare growth. That's the first idea I want to share with you. Second idea. One of the main features about this welfare, this social welfare, has always been identified with equality, right? Equality. I'm not going to get into the French Revolution now, but equality. Liberty, equality, fraternity. We all remember that. And I always say, freedom, okay, let's not get confused. Freedom is not the equality amongst all of everybody. We're all different. And no matter how much we say, we will never be exactly the same to each other. And a lot of you here present, each one of you has his or her own personality. And these personalities cannot all, one size does not fit all. I do not mean equal from that point of view. Therefore, what's important is equality of opportunities, equality of knowledge, equality about a number of things that are needed, and they are tools for that welfare. But we should not place equality as used to be done in certain 20th century ideologies. We are all equal. We should all have the same salary. We should all be exactly the same. No, we should all have the same rights. We should all have the same opportunities. is that inequality should not reach certain thresholds. There should be a certain floor and a certain ceiling for inequality. And within the certain inequality that could exist, there should be some limits. And politics should be useful to define the lower limit and the upper limit. The lower limit, well, today they have raised the minimum salary in Spain. But what about the maximum salary? In other words, there should be an area that we consider to be a fair society, an equitable society. Equitable, that's a term that comes up oftentimes. A society in which we are not all the same, but we all are within certain upper and lower limits. Third point. And this is when we start talking about the Buffet Foundation. This equality of opportunities, this equality of rights, is very much based, and it is very much established after the first few years of life, when you're a very young person. These are the years that truly define these possibilities. And therefore, the education period, the education period is key. Buffet was born with many, many ideas to improve society and to improve welfare, societal welfare. And slowly, we actually focused on a single task, i.e. the educational period. And I recognize, and I was telling this Hector a few seconds ago, after being here for a number of years and in Madrid, when there were democratic governments, and after living for a number of years in Paris within the EU Commission, during my last phase at the EU Commission, I worked very much for Jacques Delors. Maybe some of you still remember him. And Jacques Delors, we remember him because he wrote a report for the OECD, which was a report that said education is the source of everything that happens afterwards throughout life. I can't recall how he said it in his report. He said, in education we have a treasure, it's a great opportunity. I can't recall exactly how his wording was. And when I came back from Brussels, at the Buffet Foundation, we discussed a lot. And given that certain things had already been attained, there was democracy in Spain, and we didn't have to do things to defend democracy, then we thought, okay, let's defend education. Let's become advocates for education. And that's the third element and the third phase. After that, and that's when we come to the present moment, there was an awareness about the fact that all of the things that are happening and many of the things we're experiencing are very much related to technological progress. Humanity at large has progressed so much. Why? Because it has increased its knowledge. Because it has turned this knowledge into technological tools, whether material or whether intellectual. And with all of these tools, we have seen the growth of people's welfare. Therefore, technology, I mean, people may agree or not, but technology is one of the great things that has happened to humanity. Without knowing more, without knowing how to apply this knowledge to practical things, without knowing how to build up tools with this knowledge, we would have not been able to be where we are. Therefore, we need to see, and many of the problems we have at the moment are problems that are that have a positive aspect and a negative aspect about them. We cannot even imagine the amount of things we're able to do and that we were not able to do just 10, 15, or 20 years ago, or 10 or 20 centuries ago. Therefore, technology is a wonderful tool, but at the same time, technology is a great threat, a great danger. Why? I always say like that. I don't know how they used to eat ham in the past, but when the knife was invented, well, a knife is a tool, and it is useful to cut ham. But it's also useful, I mean, it does have the danger that you may cut yourself or that you may use it to cut somebody else. So technologies do have an extraordinary aspect about them. An extraordinarily positive aspect, but it has a danger for those who use them and a danger for those who use them. And sometimes this is difficult to understand and to bear in mind. So from that point of view, and with this I will end my presentation, here at the Beaufil Foundation, we actually bear in mind all of the things I've said. This is my own personal view, though, what it represents. And fortunately, here at the Beaufil Foundation, we have people who have many more ideas about this, and they share these general lines I've described for you. So based on that, now we realize that there is something going on that's not a compression or a collision. It's a collusion. It's a sort of a marriage between education and technology. And we are at a time that's very, very important. Out of the decisions that are made in the field of education and out of the decisions that are made in the technological field. Therefore, we cannot just not accept the changes that technology will bring in the world of education. And we cannot think that education will not change with technology. And this, which is such a short sentence, is one of the things that will define the future of our society. When there should be education, what type of education should there be? What are the tools that need to be used? Why should they be used? And how we should avoid the problems, the threats, or the dangers, or the difficulties that this technology could create. Today, I've been asked to make this presentation, but I've come here to listen, because what I want is to learn. I want to learn more about the marriage between technology and education, because that implies going over all the different phases of life. And I loved what you have, I love the festival you're starting here today. I hope it will have a continuity. And we need to understand why I believe that right now, and I can tell you, I have 14 grandchildren, some of whom are already working. A lot of you probably know Fortnite, right? Oh, you know Fortnite. One of my grandchildren is actually coding Fortnite for the Americans. He's quite old. He's almost 22 or 23 or 24 years. So, and I have very young grandchildren, and I realize to which extent technology helps out and to which extent we're not aware about the problems that technology could create, even amongst people who use it. And finally, you have to bear that in mind. Technology is a great tool for progress, but it's also a great tool for inequality. And that's where we should actually make a great effort to avoid that. When there were no cars, And when there are cars, there are some people who have a car and people who do not have a car. Therefore, that demands always and in the case of education too, a double-fold responsibility. Yes, let's call it responsibility. On the side of people, greater responsibility. And on the side of government, new regulations. New regulations. So the more technology there is, the greater the capacity that people have. It is very important that they be responsible, and it is very important that they understand that coexistence cannot be carried out without that regulation. Okay? I'm convinced that this will be useful for what you will be doing here today, what you're starting to do here today. It is very nice the way you have started. It will be useful for, well, at least in this hub, we will have new ideas and thoughts surrounding all of this. Thank you. Well, thank you, Joan. Thank you. Well, now I don't have anything else left to say. So things are made easy for me. In fact, as Joan has just said, digital equity has inherent contradictions, and in the scales you have said it, we have wanted to force you to question things that are not obvious. And in fact, today we want to share three news. The first one, thanks to many of the people here present, we are closing the first digital divide, and we are closer to having all young people, teenagers, to have a digital device. And then we have the household challenge. But we have part of the famous digital divide, the one that is based on not owning a computer. Well, we are improving. There is still work to do, but we're making headway. So with regards to the digital divide, there was like an iceberg, and the pandemic above all, but we realized clearly that it's a much deeper iceberg. There is a second and a third gap. Access to the competencies, and Joan mentioned it, how the technology becomes a lever for opportunities for everybody. How can we take advantage of it? Who benefit from the technological change so that we're not an increasingly technological society that's increasingly unequal? We have to think, therefore, that the first gap will tend to disappear. We will be increasingly connected, and that's good. And it is a necessary work, but it will not be enough. It will be less and less enough. The second gap will be and it's going to be a constant process. But the third one is the one that's most difficult to reach. The greater the risks we'll be exposed to. More bias algorithms, etc. So we cannot actually, we have to be surveillant. So, following Joan's line, we have thought about exploring this intersection between social justice and new emerging technologies. What's here? Things that are happening. A lot of you will show things that you're doing to face this problem. We call these digital equity. So what's a piece of news? Today, as of today, we present the Digital Equity Lab. We have been working on it for 1 year in the shade with some of you, and today we will explain a few things. But, well, so what is digital equity? We have said so, and probably you have internalized it, but we believe that these 7 principles should be remembered. The first one, the best technologies are the ones that make us more human. Technologies that allow us to be more connected between each other, that maximize what makes us human, to be creative, to be curious, to not conform, to be critical. If not, we are making a mistake. We are fooling ourselves. Digital inequalities are social inequalities. Technology places a mirror in front of our realities. The poverty we have, the social challenges we need to face. And therefore, what technology allows us to do is to solve this inequality from other positions. The school cannot do everything. Sometimes we believe that the school should be sustainable, it should be a maker, it should be emotional, it should be everything. Well, from digital equity, we say that the school cannot do everything. And the challenge of digital equity belongs to everybody: families, libraries, startups, educational centers, everybody. So we need to widen our gaze, this 360 degrees and community-based gaze when it comes to solving the digital challenge. Digital neutrality does not exist. We say that all technologies have an intentionality. Sometimes it's hidden, it's not obvious. So as teachers, as educators, we have to know that technologies are not neutral, and therefore it will be our responsibility to know who is promoting this technology, how it has been built up, what it's looking for. And this is not easy to answer, but we'll have to start thinking about it. There is no equity if there is no diversity. And Joan Major said so too. The new equality is diversity. In other words, beforehand, social struggles, it was for everybody to be equal. Now, can we all be different and have the same opportunities? Can we design technologies that respond to the different ways of teaching and learning? We're all different. We all learn differently. Can we build up these technologies in that way? Open access is not equal to equity. To say, okay, a resource or have a web page open for everybody and for free will not be enough. We know that to have a technology, to offer information, to offer training is not sufficient, is not enough. To the social equity or the digital equity, we need to look for the audiences, we need to coach them, we need to give them support, and we need to be patient. Therefore, to say, to leave something in the net open and for free is not enough. And we educate technologies. This is our slogan, and it inspires us. At a time in which we need to digitize education, it is thought-provoking to think about how do we educate digitization, so that digitization is not given to us. Some people say that to digitize, the digitizer digitizes. What we mean is that educational communities should empower themselves with digitization. They should not just consume the solutions that come to them, but we should promote spaces where we design the technologies we want to have that respond to some challenges. And the lab is this. It is a space in which what we want is to share lessons, solutions, experiences, projects. In fact, you can already go to Equitat Digital. Some of you have made contributions. Today is not the first day. Today is our first open door and our open house day, but we have been working with you for a number of times. And it's a space, it's a lab we have structured into 8 spaces. A space is a theme we believe is important about digital equity. So here we will talk about programming, computational thought, AI, maker culture as a lever for educational transformation, how we should rethink libraries and school libraries in the digital era. What will remain and what will be taken out by digitization? How can we make progress towards a hybrid school? That's not due to the pandemic, but it is a hybrid technology with invisible technologies that allow us to learn from many different places at different times. What is this hybrid school all about? How can we take care? How do we survive the digital dungeon? What does it mean to talk about digital welfare? How do we do it at school? How do we do it in the family? How do we take care of our digitization, our own digitization? And then the data. We're surrounded, we're generating constantly data. Now we are generating data. So what are the data that each one of our students is generating, each one of our children is generating, and what are they being used for at the platforms? This is something else we will need to think about. And then disinformation. This is another topic. We have members of the Disinformation Task Force. It is a significant topic that we will need to coach. Now, all of this mix of problems is what creates the lab. It's not a closed lab. We will open up new themes as we work together. We have been working together for 1 year with this lab, and this is a project that we have carried out with different institutions, with SIG, and Carla Sierra, the thinking mind in terms of artificial intelligence in the project, when we have tested out an algorithm that should allow us to improve the teaching relationship process, and we wanted not to impose it, but to have a criterion. And this is our position. We have tested it out in public schools, and we're learning from that. What do we take and what we do not take from that, from what already exists? This AI guide has already been published. And in fact, those of you who are interested, at the exit, please do take a copy. The learning processes, the lessons we have learned, and the risks and opportunities, and 6 cases of good practices. We're also starting a really fascinating project where we're trying to imagine what a sustainable fab lab means with a circular economy in which we do not print out plastic, we print out biomaterials. For example, orange peels, apple peels, because we believe that the revolution is being carried out. And some of the centers, and some of you are present here, that should also be a sustainable revolution. You also have access to a small MOOC we have created about how to hacker your 3D printer to stop printing plastic and to start printing biomaterials. We're creating an ecosystem, and any ecosystem, any lab has a point of uncertainty. So we do not know what we will get to and what we will be able to create. But what we know is that we cannot do it on our own, no matter how many hubs we have or how many labs we have. If we do not start working together, we'll not be to face the challenge of equitability. We have opened up 3 work groups. We have, out of the 7 themes, we have 3 working groups, a lot of whom are here present today. And it's a wonderful journey in which we're learning from each other, we're inspiring each other, and if we have enough energy left, we start up a project. So what do we ask from you? We would love if you actually adhere and came up to this train. We're going slowly, but we need you. We are sharing experiences at the schools, at the libraries, in community and civic spaces. We're sharing thoughts and experiences through articles. There will be a blog space. You will be able to see it. You can consult it. And we would love to have your contributions. We have already 30 of them. But it's a way of making viral the digital activity. If at the end of the day, each one of us carries out his or her own battle on his own, we will be weaker if we do not do it together. I have actually made a spoiler. You haven't seen anything, have you? Afterwards, we also want to get to know your projects. There are consolidated projects that are aligned with digital equity in these 8 themes, these 8 spaces. We are also working on them. We are explaining them in terms of digital equitability, and you can explain it through these spaces. Tomorrow you can get into them. You can consult which other projects that are already having an impact from the point of view of digital equitability. And finally, you can make any proposals from the digital.cat website. You can contact for anything, any proposal, any decent or indecent proposal for digital equity will be actually welcome. It's a lab, we learn from each other, and the challenge is too big to face it alone. And a surprise that's already part of the lab, and it's already tangible, and we can share with you, will be explained by Coral Regie. Coral, please come. She's an educator and educational transformation advisor, and many other things. I'm so happy you're here. Right, let's talk about the exploration. The explorator. It is the landing in the schools every day. Here, with the explorer, all of the things we're mentioning here should come to the classrooms of all of our schools. And therefore, we start out from a multifaceted point of view. We want to use new words because that implies a new vision. For example, AI. We will compare, we will value, we will have different opinions, because as Hector has just said, so that we're able to tailor-make technology, so that we're able for technology to become a useful tool for our classrooms. And we will start out from the experiences that teachers have at school. We'll start out from people in our environment who are already having very good experiences about issues in the first explorator about AI. And after that, we will start disseminating. And after that, we will start thinking about the fact that we can all make a contribution. We can all build up. And somehow, we will make sure that this possibility, i.e. that we are the ones who empower, that we control technology. And let me mention for 1 second Mr. Major. I remember, and I can't recall the exact year, but I remember, Mr. Major, when you said a sentence that at the time I thought, maybe, do you mean he's right? In a professor's meeting you said, classrooms with computers are finished. Classrooms without computers will be over. Computers should be in the classroom. You said that 25 years ago, and you were totally right. Very simple structures, as I've said beforehand, and as Hector has said, they should be in all of our schools' classrooms. Therefore, you will have news from us during this first Explorator. You can register because these should land in all of our countries' school classrooms. Thank you. Thank you, Corral. Fine. Well, okay. This is an event where you are the main characters. This is a space where we want to welcome you. And before starting, we would like to share with you the ingredients we believe a good festival should have. I come from Girona, and I don't know whether you know it, but we have many cultural festivals, many musical festivals in Girona, and we have wanted to summarize this with the 5 ingredients that any good festival should have. The first ingredient is to think. And you will see that we have spaces in which Hector has just said and Juan have said, we will all think about what does digital equity mean and why we have thought it's important for education, okay? We also want to discover, we want to be curious. We want to face challenges that have not been faced before. We want to know what goes on beyond, whether there are risks, whether there are no risks, whether we will have benefits or not, and then make decisions based on that. We want to experience, and that's why chorals, labs, teachers' activities that are already practicing. We want to know about them, we want to share them. And that's the next one. We want to be connected. We said so at the beginning. Many of you, I mean, I've exchanged mails with many of you, and we have called each other. And I'm very happy that we have finally connected to each other, and we are seeing each other. And finally, we have come here to have fun. This is a festival, and we want you to have fun. This is spaces for you. We want all of these things to happen, and we should carry it out, okay? So, we have had now the presentation, and now we will give rise to the panel discussion with our 3 international speakers who will be introduced by Hector. And then after that, we will have a coffee break, and you can talk to each other, network, have coffee, greet each other, and after that, we will have the part in which we have our bracelets, right, Hector? We have 2 different blocks with 3 simultaneous activities. Depending on the activity, you will have one bracelet or another. And the space for dialogues is going to be this very same space from this column on my right-hand side all the way to this one, okay? In that space over there, we will have the experiences block, and on the first floor, going upstairs, you will have the workshops, okay? Getting in on the left-hand side. Once they are finished, we'll have 5 or 10 minutes, and then we will invite you to go to your space. If you want to be in the dialogues, you will have to be here. If you want to be in the experiences block, you have to go that way, and the workshop will be on the first floor. And then we will have some after work, and we will share the first impressions of how it all went. So thank you very much indeed, and I hope that we will all get connected. Welcome. Okay, so now I'm going to speak English.
We start our international panel with 3 women, 3 leaders that I will introduce next. And they will page you in 3 minutes, just a brief introduction about their impact and organizations. First of all, I will just go back here. We welcome Fiorella Haim. Fiorella is General Manager in Centro CEIBAL, a publicly funded innovation center that integrates technologies into public policies to improve education and ensure digital inclusion. Thank you, Fiorella.
everybody. I'm really happy to be here with you in this beautiful city, in this beautiful place. Thank you, Fundación Bofill, for the invitation. I will tell you a little bit about CEIBAL. Well, this is our motto, learning from the future. And CEIBAL is the National Innovation Center that integrates technology and education to improve learning. So that's our general statement. And we are a state-owned center. Our board has 4 members. One of them is the Minister of Education. So we are very closely related to the public administration. So we have been working for 16 years. We learned a lot. And we know that technology is not the solution for everything, just by itself. But at the same time, we can't imagine an education without technology. So what is CEIBAL? What do? We try to group our activities in 6 areas. So we deploy hardware, devices, and Wi-Fi access, and labs. So every child in Uruguay from ages 6 to 15 has a laptop for taking home, and they have Wi-Fi connectivity at their homes. That's one thing we do. It's like the infrastructure strategy. But we also buy, custom, and manage several learning platforms so that any teacher at any school in the country can access, and they have their groups there and they can use them. We have also a professional development system for teachers with several tracks. We have several educational programs that are built into this layer of technology. We have a lot of resources created for digital. We generate a lot of strategic information for us, for our teams, to improve the program, for teachers, the teaching, to know how to help the teachers, and for authorities, so all at the different levels. So that's a really brief introduction of what we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fiorella. So we go from Uruguay, we go to UK/Australia. We welcome Helen Milner, is the Group Chief Executive of Good Things Foundation in UK and Australia, a charity that works to ensure that everyone benefits from the digital society. That's tough.
Thank you. So I'm the Group Chief Exec at Good Things Foundation, and you can find me on Twitter at Helen Milner. Our vision is to fix the digital divide for good. We work with adults, so people over the age of 16, so adults with low-income families and older people. And our model is to work at the hyper-local level in thousands of communities, so over 2,000 communities across the UK. So since 2010, we've helped 4 million people worldwide to cross that digital divide. And when we got to 2 million, we thought, maybe this is a good model, okay? So then we went to Australia, and we set it up in Australia. So I was told that there aren't community organizations in Australia who can help people with digital inclusion. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not Australian, but I think you're wrong. And 2 years later, we had 3,000 partners at the hyperlocal level in every single state and territory across Australia. Our goal in the UK is in the next 3 years to support 1 million more people, but also to increase our number of hyperlocal partners in communities to 5,000. And that number isn't just a magic number, there are 5,000 underserved communities across the UK, so we need to make sure that we have a local partner, an independent partner in each one of those communities. So for the first 10 years of the work of the charity, we only helped people with skills, with confidence, and the motivation to use the internet. We work with adults, half of whom had no qualifications whatsoever. And I always think of what we do as giving people a second chance. So they haven't done well at school. So all of you who are teachers and educators, you know, there still are people who are coming out of school who don't have the skills that they need to be productive and to have an equal opportunity in society. So we help people to be digitally able, equal, and safe. It's not enough just to have the skills to perform tasks. It's important to be able to feel equal in a digital society. But we don't do it. That's not what we want to do. We want people to have a better life. So everything we do is about improving people's outcomes to have a better life, to be happier, healthier, and better off. And people are digitally excluded because they lack the motivation, the confidence, and the skills, and or they cannot afford a device. So the device is a secondary thing. If they don't have it, they can't get on the first rung of the ladder, but it's important that they have that skills and motivation. So in the UK, there are 10 million people who lack basic digital skills. So 10 million people over the age of 15 cannot do the basic tasks on the internet to be functional in society. The pandemic changed a lot for everybody, and for us it changed a lot because we were working in thousands of communities, physical places, libraries, community centres, and all of those doors shut. And instantly, we found out that the people we needed to help the most didn't have a laptop, they didn't have a smartphone, they couldn't afford the internet. And so we had to help them. We helped 22,000 people. And so after the pandemic, we then said it's important that our strategy has both the access, because for us, digital equity means that everybody, every single day, on a Sunday and in the evening, has a device and has free or affordable internet access. And we do that with three things. We have a national data bank, so that is with donations of SIM cards, 500,000 SIM cards for 500,000 people, all donated by industry. We have a national device bank, so this is about saving the planet as well as saving people and helping people have opportunity, bringing a reuse of old devices through corporates into that community. But most importantly, we have the network. We have those thousands of partners as well as our learning platform, Learn My Way. And we think of this as that infrastructure, so the social infrastructure to drive social equality across the country, so everybody has a second chance, but nobody's left behind in a digital society. Thank you very much.
So we cross the ocean another time. We go to Canada, to Quebec. We have here Kate Arthur, is the CEO of Digital Moment. It's a Canadian-based NGO that advocates for digital justice and promotes programs where young people develop advanced digital skills. All yours, Kate.
Muchas gracias por l'invitation. Je parle français, mais je parle pas très bien l'espagnol. I don't speak Spanish very well. I'm very happy to be here, not just to be here, but it's minus 35 in where I live, so I will be in shorts and t-shirts a little bit later on because it's very hot in Barcelona for me. Thank you for the invite. I wanted to start with a bit about what education means. All of the work that I do starts with this definition of what education means to me, what it means to the organization, and what I think it should mean for society. We educate our youth. We're in education systems for 20 plus years so that they can be socially, economically, and environmentally engaged citizens with the critical thinking skills to be able to create and communicate in the world around them. And I'll use that word a lot, and I use that word a lot, the word communicate, because that's as we see the transition of into the digital space, a lot of the communication that we do on a day-to-day basis is also changing. And I'm involved in a lot of layers of government and NGOs trying to move and shift us in this fourth industrial revolution so that we're leaving no one behind. My organization, Digital Moment, actually was founded and started as Kids Code Jeunesse about 10 years ago. We saw the need, again, for kids to be creative, communicating with technology, not just consuming it. So I studied English literature, and I know the power of language and of literature, and those who own the power to control and communicate with a written word. In the middle century, it was the white man. In the 21st century, it's the white man. And so we have to change that to democratize the access, but also the creation of technology. So in Canada, we focus now, Kids Code Jeunesse still exists, but it really focuses on Canada, on that holistic 360 access to education in communities, in classrooms, educating parents and lifting everyone up. Our Digital 2030 is our international program. It's about awareness, not just in Canada, but around the world, getting youth together to use AI and data for good. So we align all of our work to the Sustainable Development Goals and working closely with UNESCO in this space. And then lastly, we have an innovation lab. In 2018, when we were talking with the kids, they were fed up of listening to people like me. They were fed up of listening to, the middle-aged people telling them what school should look like, what they should be learning, how they should be learning. And so we thought, well, why not also disrupt the way we teach? So we now bring youth to co-create education with us and allow them to start to prepare for their future and be engaged with their future. In Canada, we have a very complex education system. We've got 13 ministries of education in the different provinces and territories, in the two official languages, in English and French. So we do a lot of focusing on ministry work with the different ministries. And then globally, we are reaching over 142 countries with our work through UNESCO. We are seeing a widening gap with digital. So those who have digital, 4.9 billion are on the internet out of 8 billion of the population, and 1 billion of those just connected through the pandemic. So there was a big jump in the pandemic. But over 3 billion of our population are still not on the internet. And so when you're looking at tools like ChatGPT and these generative AI tools that are using data that's on the internet, it's only representing half of our population. So what are we doing about that? How are we engaging students to start to use these technologies, learn with these technologies, and advance alongside with these technologies? And there we are. Thank you. Great to be here.
Great, so we have a really tight schedule, but we are smart and fast, okay? So thank you, you three. This is like the first speech, so we wanted to discover what are they doing. And now we move on a little bit on the reflections, maybe in the why they are doing so. So we start with Helen, and we want to know why they work on digital divide. And in the UK, because this is a developed country, it's a wealthy country, why you work on digital divide. And I think it's very interesting on your organization also that you talk about digital rights. What means digital right for you?
Okay, so first question, why? Yeah. It's interesting, actually. I was going to pick Kate up on something. You just said that 4.9 million people, so 3 million are left behind.
Billion.
Right? Sorry, billion, of course, billion. But those 4.9 aren't actually included, right?
No.
They're connected, right? It's different. So the 10 million people in the UK who don't have the basic digital skills to be able to do basic things, to use government websites, to apply for work, 95% of jobs in the UK are only advertised online. That they can't, lots of them can't actually get an appointment with a GP, with a doctor, right? So actually, when you think that's 10 million people, some of them have smartphones, right? Some of them even have broadband in their house, but they still don't have those skills. And a lot of that is to do with education and money. So people who haven't done well at school, who have no job or have a low-skilled job, and or they have very low incomes, are going to be much, much more left behind in the digital society. And so they're the people who are hidden. Because those 4.9 billion globally are okay, or that 95% of the UK population is okay. It's not true. We are increasingly creating more behind. Even in the UK. I'm embarrassed, I'm shocked, but it's true. And just being shocked and embarrassed doesn't mean that you fix it. So let's make sure we fix those issues. This is something we can do something about. So if you start with a fundamental belief that the internet is here for good, I believe that the internet is a power for good, used in the right way, and actually leaving people behind because somebody else thinks that there's some bad things out there. I don't agree with that. So let's make sure that we understand that it's here, we understand that we're leaving people behind, and therefore we have to make it accessible, we have to make it free if they can't afford it, or affordable if it's too expensive, and we have to make sure that we have in their own community, with people like them, people who are trusted, the opportunity to learn what they need to learn in an informal and friendly way when they want to learn it, so that they're supported and that they're included.
So you think, Helen, we should, one policy, one option will be to offer free internet to people that are not in condition to pay it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we already have a national data bank, so we're going to help 500,000 people who don't have the money to pay for the internet, right? And so that is because of our partnership with industry, that they give us that free internet so that we can then go into the underserved communities and we can help those people who can't afford it. I believe, but that actually the governments need to understand that there are people who can't afford the internet. And therefore just saying that we need to make it cheaper or that the market will provide isn't going to help everybody. So I personally believe that we should have an opportunity to have free internet. I believe that when you move into a house, there should be internet, and then you have water, yeah? Because if we say it's a fundamental part of our society, if we're building our government and we're building our industry, our services on the internet, then actually it's fundamental for everybody to have it.
That's right, and we go to Fiorella because, in fact, 100% of schools are connected in Uruguay, thanks in part to Centro CEIBAL. And we wanted to talk with you a little bit more about education in schools and also maybe after schools. Here, before the pandemic in Catalonia, and I think worldwide, we lived a spring of education, a transformation of the methodologies, more active, more creative methodologies. Everything was kind of frozen for a couple of years. And now, after the pandemic, it's like all the change in education goes toward digitalization. And the projects are like really focused on digitalization. What are the risks and opportunities you see in this context?
I think that digitalization...
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I don't know if it works.
Hello? I think I reached the chair,
okay.
So sorry for that.
That's okay.
I think that digitalization and technology in general is not just the screen, and you should take advantage of technology to deepen what you were doing and what we were trying to do, I think, in several countries. So robots, programmable boards, sensors, 3D printers, drones, they are very engaging tools. And you can build projects that are student-centered, and they can decide how to learn. And you should take advantage of this aspect. And I think we were talking about it some minutes before this panel. You should be very aware of the risks of broadening the gaps. Like we were saying, the gender gap in technology. In Uruguay, you have very few women in STEM professions, science, technology, engineering, and math. And now you know that diverse teams are better because they are more productive, they are more creative, they work better. So as a country, we need to have more women in these fields. And when you give we had the same problem that you had this afternoon, right? When you don't do anything, girls don't show up. So we had that problem, and we started taking some actions, very simple actions, and we started measuring the effect of the actions in terms of number of girls that are involved. And we developed a methodology to do that. And, well, if you don't measure it, it won't happen. That's one of the famous laws, and it's true. So I would say that when you design a program, you have to keep in mind this and be aware that that's the society where we are living, and try to design it specifically, not to broaden the gaps. And it's possible. So we have a booklet, it's in our web, we can share it with you, and it's open, so we are constantly including more indicators, and we are very open to feedback also. So I think that's one of the risks we have with technology.
I found when we talked before, I found very interesting your approach of incremental technology in the classroom, right? Not starting having all the technologies just at one time. It's trying like to change step by step, like learning like from scratch. How you deploy this technology? Because now with the EA funds here, we have like a reign of technology in schools, which is good, but maybe it's a risk also because it's so much in a short time. Which is your approach of incremental training on technology with teachers mainly?
We are a poor country, so we have the money to build the labs, but only if teachers take the courses before we go, and they write a project saying what they are going to do through the year related to the curriculum and the lab. So once we have that, we go and we put everything together.
Okay. Can I add on to that a little bit? Because because we see that a lot in the work that we do, and we always start with no technology, because learning in this space is about computational thinking. So it's about problem solving, breaking problems down, decomposition. So it's not about the consuming of technology. It's about the thinking of it. So you can do that with a couple of rocks. It's about getting the kids to think. So when a teacher sees that as well, it breaks the ice. It shows them that, okay, this isn't this. I can do the rocks. I can do the the arrows and the direction. So maybe I am okay to start with the technology. I've seen time and time again the line item in school budgets being for hardware and not for training, and time and time again, the hardware sitting on the shelves, or no one there to fix it, or because in our case, unions are so strong that you have to wait for a technician to come and repair it, and that's going to take 3 months, and by that time, the technology is obsolete. So it is about the thinking, it's about the learning, and then the implementation of different tools coming into class.
So we go with you, Kate, but I forgot to say that you can just warm up your questions, because if we are on time, we would like to share some Q&A after the panel or during the panel. So you just prepare your questions, because we have like really smart people here that they are already working in technology in education. So I imagine that they have great questions. So we wait for that later. Kate, Digital Moment, Quebec. You are a really special NGO because you advocate for social change, for equity, like the basics. But at the same time, you are experimenting with top trends technology and challenges like AI, big data. How you manage these two levels of advocacy and programs? Because it's like very interesting.
Yeah, well, I think it comes back to the reason why what I think education is about. It's about creating and communicating with the world around us, and at the that is changing so fast. We're in this fourth industrial revolution, and if you look at the history of industrial revolutions, this disruption that happens not only to every way that we work, but the way that we learn. And so if we don't start to disrupt education and change the way from being an information-based way of learning, of consuming knowledge and then putting it into whether it's a paper or an exam, if we don't start changing that into action-based learning, hands-on learning, then we're leaving that generation behind, because AI can now do all of that memorization and learning and start to regurgitate that. So, which is in my view, fantastic that these tools are coming, because it is going to force an acceleration of the education system to keep up with this industrial revolution. So. It is not one view that needs to be taken. It's a discussion. It's a debate. For the first time, we're seeing the arts and sciences collide in this space. And if you look at the history of innovation, that's that's where innovation really happens, is, you know, the Da Vinci's, the Einsteins of who were both artists and scientists, those coming together. And so we're going to see new roles and new jobs. We're going to see ethicists. We're going to see people involved in training data and being involved in data. And if our governments get it right and are involved in making sure that public policy and laws are strong, we will be able to move up together. We all know that governments are not as fast as industry. And so jobs like what we do is to help bridge that gap and help move it forward.
And I find so interesting your approach of bottom-up digitalization. I think it's very connected with these fundamentals of design thinking, of not designing for, designing with.
Yes.
Right? I think we have a problem here, maybe in Catalonia, but maybe all around the world. We are digitalizing, but without hearing the voices and without involving the same teenagers and kids in this digitalization choices. What are you doing on that? Because I know that you have like a group of youth people that work together with you. How you involve them in that change?
Well, even bringing the youth together is a challenge, because again, Canada is so, it's a young country, but we have a large indigenous population. We have language issues. We have a huge immigration coming in. So how do you make sure that all of those voices are included? So we do bring them all around the table, whether virtual tables or real tables, but over weeks, getting them to learn and use technology to discuss with each other, and then they come to us and tell us what they want to see. You know, I really strongly believe in this engagement that we need to do with that age group. You know, we've seen Greta Thunberg and those activists coming and really being vocal about their planet and their people. I think we need to start thinking of those two P's before we think about profit, and really start to focus on how do we engage those youth. They are so smart, they are so able, and they are the digital natives, as we call them, but they are not learning how to create this technology. So if we can get them to think about that and find solutions that, you know, we as adults start to put blocks and barriers quickly. They haven't yet. So they look at the world completely different to us and bypass and jump over and leapfrog over issues and you know, things that we would say, no, you can't do that. They're like, well, why not? Of course we can. And most of the time they're actually right. So we need to bring them to the table and get them involved. So it is a big focus for us.
Fiorella, you wanted to add something maybe?
Well, we have a program with design thinking with technology at schools, and it's really amazing what young people can do when you leave it to them. Yes, I would totally agree.
We are leaving one of the most tough questions for the last one, and this is not for any of yours, so just jump in. Is if we are doing so good bridging this first digital divide, if we are in a 100% of connected schools, if we are so close of a digitalized educational system, why inequalities still persist? Why it's so difficult to put technologies to work to offer opportunities for good? Because sometimes it's like this digital equity utopia idea that we are looking for. What do we have to change in the system at political level, at systemic level, in order to make that? Because we have here a really mixed and diverse audience. We have teachers, policy decision makers, activists, researchers. But which is the big picture for change in digital equity from your point of view? Yeah, Fiorella.
I think that Wi-Fi and laptops are just like the electricity or the water at schools. Like you are going to have electricity, right? But that is not going to make students learn
smarter
anything.
Or yeah.
Right? But you have to have it. You need it. It's okay. It's a good condition. But then then your challenges start. So it's.
Yeah, I think the water issue is interesting because in Canada, although many people think it's a fairly wealthy country, we still have large indigenous peoples who don't have running water. So that's where gaps start, right? Where the cities are able and connected and accelerating at a quick pace. Innovation. If you think you're done with digitization, you also think you're done with innovation. So I think we're in a space of, if you want to innovate, there's still so much. AI's come at us at a roaring pace. It's been around for 50, 60 years, but we're roaring ahead because of the ability to the amount of data that we're giving these powerful machines. But we're going by so quickly. So there's a group of us, a percentage of us that are accelerating really, really fast, and then we still have communities in this country, in our country, who don't have running water. So how do we bridge that? And I think it's multi-layered and multi-stakeholdered again, and it needs all layers of our government. It does need industry involved, and it needs us to put people and planet before profit.
Because there was a balance there between rights and opportunities.
Yes.
Is a little trick.
I put one on each.
Yeah. Can I just say that I think that it's really important that if you talk about education, you don't just think about schools, right? That you think about communities and you think about families, because children who are lacking in opportunity, who will lack in opportunity, are likely to come from a community that already lacks opportunity, that is already underserved, and they're likely to living in a household where the adults in that household are already also lacking opportunity and are also underserved. So I would say make sure that you're looking at the whole of the ecosystem, and that when you say education, capital E, education, it's not just, teachers and schools, it's actually the whole of that ecosystem, and make sure that you don't leave the adults behind, because, we're all living longer. Just because someone's 45 and they don't know how to use the internet, they're going to have to live for another 40 years. And as the pace of change within our society, so the pandemic showed us this, is that services got digitized incredibly quickly. They were doing in 3 weeks, 3 months what they were planning to do in 3 years. But what does that mean for those people who are left behind? So we saw the digital divide narrow, but deepen. And so just because you think you're okay, just because all schools have connectivity, that does not mean as a society you are equal. And definitely that does not mean as a society you are digitally equal.
We could even say, Helen, that we are all within the digital divide. Who from here knows how to build an AI algorithm, for example, or how it works? Or how to, Sam doesn't count. Apart from Sam, who is in the digital divide? Later, we want to talk with you, because Sam, apart from be a great DJ and coder and make great parties, he has a really interesting view from education. We were talking before. Maybe you can add something later. It will be great. Or now. Yeah, no, prepare yourself a little bit. I really love his vision of education. Helen, I think it's really interesting what we were saying about the community. We say in our 7 principles, schools cannot be alone, cannot do everything. This approach of a community, an ecosystem, how it works, how you do it, because it's like very beautiful. We are a community, an ecosystem. In fact, we here in the Fundación Bufi, we have a project with this vision of community, 360 project. How you make it? How you work in communities?
So we do 2 things. One is we make an offer that's attractive. It's free. You can, if you have people in your community who can't afford the internet, we can help you. We can give you free internet. If you have people who don't have basic digital skills, we have a free learning platform. We have people so I'm talking about community organizations. We have other community organizations who will help asylum seekers, or help people coming out of prison, or people who are unemployed, or people who are older people. So that actually you can come together in that community, because there's thousands of them in the community. So that's one, is the offer. And then the second one is strategy. We target, if we look at a map, we look at social exclusion, We look at if we have a partner. If we don't have a partner, we go on the internet, we ring up the council, we ring up other people. We work really hard. So just in the last 12 months, we've brought 1,000 more community organizations into our network just by working really hard, by contacting people, being strategic, looking at the most disadvantaged communities, making sure that we can serve them through a local partner. So it's hard work, but our fundamental belief is that that community can provide that digital equity for that community. It's just about finding those people and making sure the way that we support them and the offers that we provide for them meets their needs. So it's easy, but it's also hard work.
Yeah, and it relates a lot with this principle of open access is not equity. You cannot just wait them to come. You have to target them and work.
Oh, absolutely, because again, that the community organizations in underserved communities might not think that they deserve to be friends with Good Things Foundation, right? We need to go and tell them that they're welcome and that we have other people like them in our community and in our ecosystem, and that they are really important, that we can't fix the digital divide without them. Right? So they are so important, and we need to tell them because, again, they are people from those communities, and often they're working incredibly hard with very little money. They don't have many people knocking on their door and saying, can we give you some help? Can we link you up with someone like you?
That's beautiful.
Can I add a small point to the digital equity in the divide and in the communities? There's also been a really positive outcome from the pandemic, in that communities or youth who were unable to connect and use digital space before now can. So we're seeing a lot of school boards in Canada are now offering a hybrid model of learning, where those youth who either have high learning difficulties or difficulties getting to school or physical disabilities are now able to learn and thrive because they can learn from home. So there's been and as our organization, we can reach communities that are so far north that we were never able to reach. We just join them on a screen, and we're in the classroom chatting with them and bringing our learning and sharing. So there's been a lot of the downside, but the digital space is also closing the equity in places where it was growing before. And so that's why I put it in two places, because into the balance, balance, because on one side it's widening the gap, but on the other side it's also closing the gap.
Yes, I wanted to say also that we see that in order to reduce the gaps, it's very important to teach for everybody the computational thinking, artificial intelligence concepts, and we have measured that regarding the skills that kids have, and when you have the program in place, the gaps and the divide, they disappear. Gender ones and also economic gaps, they reduce. So we are trying to expand this experience in Uruguay. The computational thinking program is not mandatory, so we have around half of the population because teachers have to want to have the program. And this year, 2023, we are starting to have it for every fourth graders. So that's a big change for us in the policy. I think that I really enjoy that program. I'm an electrical engineer, so I really enjoy it. And if we have some more minutes, I can explain you how to, I won't say how to code, but in 15 minutes I can explain you neural networks, and then we can...
In the coffee break. There's
really
a corner, the Fiorella corner is down there.
But I think it's important for kids, not for all of us, but for children to understand how they work and be able to be part of that world, because it's already here. It's not the future.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Fiorella. So we are in the last 10-15 minutes for Q&A. Podem fer preguntes en català, en anglès, en francès, parla que... Yeah, Lorenzo.
Hi. Hi. My name is Lorenzo. I'm from Associación Verificat. We're a fact-checking organization. So, yeah, my question comes a bit from my line of work. But, right. Yeah, so...
Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, thank you. This
Hello?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. This was extremely interesting, and I was wondering how you factor digital information literacy into this process, because of course when we talk about new technology, we're not only but very often talking about digital information technologies, and in my line of work, which is basically counter disinformation and fact-checking at the educational level, we see how by getting access to those technology, you also get access to a lot of dangerous contents that have quite an impact on society. So I was wondering how, I'm sure you've been thinking about it a lot, so I was wondering how this is embedded into the process of digital inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall I start?
That's it's up to you.
So let me talk about online safety. I know it's not exactly what you're talking about, but that on our Learn My Way platform, so that's the basic curriculum and content that the local partners use. We have some, so it's all bite-sized, very small learning on online safety, but also everything else we embed it in. So if you learn about email, then we embed safety and security. About jobs, looking for work, then we embed safety, security, but also fake information. You know, that might not be a real job site. It might ask you for money. And same with social media. So that, because we find that the adults that we're supporting actually talking, and because we co-create all of the content with adults in communities, and so we found that actually talking about fake news or misinformation was conceptually very difficult. So we actually then just embed it to say, this is just what social media is like, therefore you need to watch out for these things. So, I mean, so that's the way that we do it. I mean, I want to say that I think we should do more. And that we also do a lot of capacity building and support, so training for the people, the volunteers and the staff in those local community organisations, because sometimes it's actually about how do they then interpret the needs of the people who are coming in. So this is back to the point, it's not just about skills, it's not just how to keep myself safe, it's also about what does that mean to me in my real life. And that's why those local community organisations are so important, because they're the ones who are holding the hands, who are translating, if you like, this new Wild West world of the internet, so they can learn the skills using Learn My Way, but they get that interpretation and application through that local trusted support that they get through the community organisations.
You want to add something?
Yeah, I can add to, so we, in particular around the space of AI and youth, so it may seem daunting, the artificial intelligence, but you can teach a 6-year-old the basic fundamentals. And I think that's really, really important that they understand how it works, because that leads up to where you get to fake news, etc. So, we teach them AI is not magic, it's not always right. Training data really, really matters. And ethics really, really matter, the ethical implications. So when you can take a youth through that process of taking data, training the data, seeing the predictions of the data, and seeing that that data is not always right, they start to build their critical thinking skills, so that when they're actually using technology and in technology, they will start to question whether what they're reading is right. Has it been trained properly? Is it right? Because you ask a kid asks Siri something, and they assume, of course, Siri. And Siri even has genders in many households, which is interesting. So we always start with that, but I do think the base also is the critical thinking. So always coming back to the critical thinking, the communication and the creation, which are my anchors. And then this year we're building out cybersecurity, cyber safety for that age group, but it's definitely really key, important.
We work with teachers or in the digital citizenship line. Critical thinking is one of the key skills that we have to develop, and we work very closely with teachers, like in workshops and with real cases. So that's one aspect that we take care of, the fake news, as well as safety and all the other aspects. But we try also to show them the good things of technology regarding citizenship also.
I have one question from from Twitter, but we have one time for this question and maybe for one more, so you still have time to think about it. We have a question in Twitter related with the training of new teachers, the junior teachers, because it seems that they are already native in technology and they are like very proactive with technology, but it doesn't seem so easy. So which is your experience? Do you have a program? Which is the situation in your country with new coming teachers?
In Uruguay is changing right now, so we are in a process of changing.
For good or for bad? Changes.
I think for good.
Okay.
And we've done a lot of work in the space, and we've learned that the pre-service teachers are where you need to be educating them on using digital skills into the classroom, because new teachers, interestingly enough, are more scared than the veteran teachers, because new teachers are just trying to figure out how to teach. How do you manage 30 kids in a classroom and just bring in some of the basics? Where a veteran teacher, they've already done that. They're ready to start to explore and discover new things, and they've got the teaching down packed. So for our approach, although we touch all three levels, a pre-service teacher, while they're in there learning how to become teachers, is part of their process that we integrate.
Okay. Questions here?
Can I just say one thing? There's quite a lot of research out there that shows there's no such thing as a digital native. So, go look at it. Like there's a lot of that actually, just because you're 21 or whatever, or 23, whatever you are when you become a teacher, doesn't mean you know how to use technology for your own life, let alone for teaching children, right?
I would say that the more techie teachers in Catalonia are seniors. I would say that.
Right.
There's a huge community of techie teachers here that are seniors, so it's one issue we have here in Catalonia with young teachers. We have a couple questions, and I think that's it. We will go with fast question, fast answers to be punctual.
Yes, hello, very fast question. Thank you for your speech. I would like to ask you for the possible partnerships with school libraries or public libraries, please.
Is that for?
Yeah. Yeah, public libraries, let's talk over coffee. We work with about 1,000 public libraries in the UK and about 1,000 in Australia, so I have lots of people you can partner with if you want to. With public libraries, not with schools. Yeah.
Yeah, we have code clubs, so you may know about the code club. So we brought code club to Canada, and we also represent France. So we bring those into communities. We train up and support librarians to bring those in. We also partner with the schools and the libraries in the community to build a sort of holistic environment. There are a lot of free resources out there. There's nothing to need to go from scratch.
We have several projects with the public library in Uruguay, and we have a digital library. Actually, it's a Spanish product that we have, and we have 9,000 books there for free for all people in Uruguay.
Yeah, this is one of our biggest challenges in the Digital Equity Lab, so we'll talk more about that. We'll make more events and more spaces for sharing, because for sure digitalization will impact libraries, and especially also libraries within schools. We have one question more here.
Yes, thank you. Following the previous debate about the schools and how we do in the schools, well, I'm visiting some schools in my country, this country, and I see the system is very stressed. I mean, the children and young people in the secondary school especially, and then teachers, and then principals, managers. So it's difficult to put something more, but it's also difficult to change ways of doing things. Mm-hmm. Because if you change, just 2 days ago, there was this discussion. If you change something in 1 hour, then, the children, they make, they feel a little more, and then you have to keep down them again, and it takes maybe 1 hour and a half, because, yeah, there are 31 in a very small place, you know. So, and then the terrible word, what about the curriculum? Because, you know, the curriculum is something that I think everyone is bored about. I mean, do the children want to go to the school nowadays, or youth people to secondary school?
And I will add, technology can help us to bring children more motivated to the school.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course, when you are doing an experiment with a drone, for instance, like measuring the temperature at different heights, and have the graph of how the temperature varies with the altitude. So that day, you have all children at school. No one miss it. And they learn how to program the drone. So they have coding skills also. When you are solving a problem that you are motivated and engaged with, then you learn other stuff. Like, for instance, a triangle can be the solution, like calculating the perimeter of the triangle can be the solution to solve something related with a problem you are working on. And so it's a different thing. And you can have the curriculum, but in a different way.
So
we can talk later.
Yeah, more topics for the coffee break. We just have 2 minutes for the final remarks, and I want this final remarks also to be to have Sam in the final remarks, because he's on another visitor to Catalonia with this digital equity invitation, and I will ask him, and then also to our panel, what is like your recommendation for us? What do we have to do from your point of view? You already know something about our educational system, about Catalonia. You already know how to spread tomato in bread. So you just give us some advice to achieve digital equity. We can start with Sam there if he wants, because I really love his vision on education, and we will move here till Helen and we finish here. Yeah, microphone, please.
I don't think I can add anything. These people.
Yeah. Thank you. No,
I don't think I'm really appropriate to say this answers. I think we already have amazing experts here who I'm actually really interested in their answers. But from my perspective, when people ask me, because I'm a coder and I program, how do I teach my children how to code? Should I learn programming language A, Java, or Python, or Scratch, or whatever? And I always say, what do your children like doing? What do they enjoy? And they answer obviously different things depending on their child. And I say, start there. Find out, well, what they enjoy is programmable, and work with that. Because if they're not interested, and I'm just repeating things that have already been said, if they're not interested for themselves, then they're going to really struggle to be engaged and motivated. And to my mind, a critical thing is to find ways to motivate children. And someone told me that the worst thing that could happen to Minecraft is to put it on the curriculum. You know? The kids love it in their bedrooms. They spend all the time playing Minecraft, but if you told them you must do Minecraft every day, they're not going to be interested. So finding ways that they can control their learning at their pace. And I love the idea about the triangle, finding solutions. Because it's like for me, I remember learning sine waves at school, and I didn't really enjoy it or understand it. But when I needed those sine waves to make music, I really engaged and learnt, and I was 35. So again, you don't have to be young to learn these things. It's all about for everybody. So finding ways to motivate people, ways which are meaningful to them, to me, is the most critical thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Fiorella, your final remarks and advices.
I saw amazing things with Minecraft in education at schools, because it all depends on teachers, right? They're the one that do the magic. So when they say, okay, let's build a garden, and you have to have 1/5 of roses and 1/3 of, I don't know, another type of flower, and so on, and they work collaboratively, and they are learning fractions, but they're enjoying it. They know they are learning fractions. It's not that they don't know, but they enjoy it. So I would say take advantage of technology to keep doing these different things you were doing, the active learning and student-centered and community engaged. So technology is an ally.
Thank you, Fiorella. Kate.
So I get to spend a lot of time in different countries speaking and learning from people, and I can tell you one thing, no one has got this right. And everyone is learning, and we're in this real disruptive space again, and a bit of a chaos. So I commend your organization and Hector, you and your team for really bringing not just people in Spain and in Catalonia together, but international to start to share and to learn from each other, because we all have a lot to learn from each other. So that would be my big takeaway. You're not alone. It's happening everywhere, and we've got lots to do.
Start with a few don'ts, right? Don't pretend it doesn't exist. The digital divide is real. Yeah, that if you do nothing, your children will be left behind, your parents will be left behind, your adults will be left behind, your communities will be left behind. Don't be complacent. Don't think it's all done. If you have to choose between skills, confidence, motivation, and technology, hardware, make sure that you choose the first, right? Don't believe digital natives exist and that when the old people die, everything's going to be fine. I hear that all the time. I hear that all the time. Clearly, I would say take care of your ecosystems and your communities. That the answer is in your community, but also think at systems level. Yeah, so that's what I think is a success for Good Things Foundation in the UK and Australia, when we've been advising NGOs in Poland and Romania as well. This is about take care of your ecosystem at that local level. That local level provides that ownership. But the more you can do systemically, the more you can do at scale, then the better you are. That's not about taking away ownership. That ownership is absolutely at that grassroots, but it's bottom up and it's top down. So it annoys me when people reinvent the wheel all the time, right? Steal what you can steal. Fiorella said she's got lots of open source booklets in Spanish, so that's a good start, right? So like, take what you can, don't reinvent the wheel, but also just do something, right? Don't get stuck because of fear or inertia or finances. Just, you're amazing people, come together, but do something. Focus, but make sure it has impact. And don't just do pilots, right? You need to do something real that's going to change the system, that's going to make that next step change that will create your society for the better.
Thank you so much, Helen. Thank you to you all. Thank you for coming to Barcelona physically, not for using Zoom. I think a plane now is boring sometimes, but it's really worthy to have you here for your intelligence, your inspiration. It has been a privilege. We keep the festival. Some next steps, I will change now to Catalan. I switch to Catalan right now, okay? Ara fem el...
Now we will have a coffee break. And at 6:15, we will start with the chaos. In the middle, we'll have the dialogues, as Hector has just said. Next door, we'll have experiences. Those who want to go and do workshops, you will go to the first floor. And then there will be a change. A couple of tips. When you listen to high music, that means changing places, okay? More or less. There will be music, but if you listen to music high, you have to change. And if you have to leave early, we have a survival digital kit and some AI tips for you, okay? So remember, and that's it. So let's the party start.